Okay, let me attempt to demo the pen tool. So before I start showing you how to use this complicated tool, let me just talk about two things that are relevant to the Photoshop program. They're definitions within the Photoshop understanding. There's fill and stroke. And this is relevant specifically to the pen tool, but also this will come up a lot when you start dealing with Illustrator. Okay, so stroke means if you make a line with the pen tool, how thick is the line? Does it look like this? Does it look like that? Or does it look like this? So the stroke is a definition that sort of means the pixel thickness of the line. So literally, like, what's the diameter of that line? What's the height, I guess would be a better word. What's the height of that line? What's the height of this line? And this would be small, this would be medium, and this would be large. So you can actually set stroke size to a certain set number in units of pixels, and that defines the line thickness. Okay, fill means if you complete a shape with the pen tool, it will automatically fill it. So if you complete a shape with the pen tool, it will automatically fill it. Now, people get really confused about these two, and they don't know how to adapt the settings of these. Now, let me also say for each of these two options, one, fill, and stroke, two, there is also an on and off switch. Okay, so for stroke, there is an on and off switch. And if the stroke is off, you're going to create an object, and then all of a sudden that object will completely disappear. And that's because your stroke thickness is off. That means like you've made a line of 0 thickness. So that can be confusing for people. The stroke has to be on, and it has to be set to a certain amount of pixels. Likewise with the fill. The fill can sometimes be set to off, and then it will not fill your shape. And oftentimes that's what you want. And then later you turn on the fill to color the object. Okay. Now also for each of these 1 and 2, not only is there an on-off setting, but there's also a color setting. So that means, what color do you want your stroke to be? Do you want it to be black, or do you want it to be green? What color do you want the fill to be? Do you want it to be black, or do you want it to be green, or something else, etc.? So for each of these tools, there are multiple variables. And if you don't understand these variables, you have no starting point from which you can understand this tool, the pen tool. Okay, so let's look at the options for the pen tool. So I have the pen tool selected. It should be, I think it's a P. It's not popping up now. P on the key, I think, is a pen tool, but this is what it looks like, the pen tool. And up here is the fill and the stroke. If you see this red bar, that means the fill option is set to off. Okay, that red bar means it's set to off. So it's not going to fill. And the stroke thickness is 24.3 pixels. Now I can change this. I could make it 86 pixels, etc. Okay, so let me see if I can make a demo line here. Now, I wasn't able to make a demo line because, again, exactly what happened. The stroke setting was actually set to the off. So I have to change it, okay? Now, you might have to fiddle with this. So I go here, press the stroke. Now let's try this, select this, and then select a color. Let's say black. Okay, now let's try to make an object. Okay, and it has made a shape, and the thickness of this shape that it drew was the stroke size. Now let's try to reduce the stroke size. So let's reduce the stroke size to like 15 pixels. Let's select black, and let's make a shape. Yep, and now it's set to a smaller thickness size. Now, there are some advantages and disadvantages to drawing with the pen tool. You can draw with the pen tool completely. You don't need to draw with the brush. The advantage of drawing with the pen tool is that all your lines are of perfect consistency, and you can construct perfect shapes. The downside is it's extremely hard to learn how to use the pen tool, okay? And there's different controls for the pen tool. Like as I'm drawing the shape, you see that this box comes up. This is sort of a point that reflects the connection. I forget what they call. I think this is called an anchor point. And then each anchor point has these two bulbous, round, hollow circles. Those circles can be grabbed. Maybe. So here's one reason why the pen tool is so confusing. You can't just grab these points to manipulate the drawing image. You have to actually change the tool, okay? So I had to change the tool from, I first had to draw the line with the pen tool, and then I had to change the tool to the convert point tool. And then at that point, I can grab these anchors, and these sort of vertex things control the roundness and sort of the radius at which this pen is completing the shape, okay? And so like I can change these things, I can make it different, and the learning curve for this is really steep. It's really hard to learn how to use the pen tool, but if you do master it, you can make really interesting things, and this is where we'll start drawing in Illustrator when we move to Illustrator. So it's good for you to just kind of experiment with this. And how you want to start learning how to use the pen tool is, the pen tool is really, really good for tracing shapes and completing perfect shapes, perfect lines with perfect line consistency. So what you want to start to do is you want to start practicing making lines that trace the outlines of, say, like natural and curved objects. And you do this by pressing your left click to create a new anchor point, and then holding the left click and drawing out I'll just call the fidget spinners, drawing them out so that they follow the curvature of the path of your natural object that you're trying to trace. And this takes a long time to practice and master. But once you get comfortable with this, you're going to learn to start liking it, and then it will help you segue into Adobe Illustrator, which, as you can tell, this sort of type of drawing already sort of facilitates a mathematical approach to drawing, where you're drawing vectors and not pixelated things. So once you start to get comfortable with completing shapes like this, this is how you construct images with the pen tool. And if you have a mouse, if you don't have a drawing pad, you might have to completely use this if you're not willing to get the drawing pad. So let's experiment with a fill of this shape. If I change the fill color to like red, it fills it red, or green, or wood color, etc. Now, I have seen students in the past who actually much prefer to draw with the pen tool. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do and you get good at it, then that's totally fine. So experiment with it and see how you like it. But I just feel in general it's just much slower than drawing with an actual brush.